are the primary goals and objectives when you want to rent and find a new tenant? Well, number one, you want to find a quality tenant who can afford to pay the rent. That should be like one of your number one things. Number two is to find someone who respects the property, the neighbors, and the policies. If you have a no pet or no smoking policy, that needs to be clearly defined. And then you want to find someone who'll be able to pay rent on time. So those are your three primary goals and objectives. Find someone who can afford the rent, someone who's going to respect the property, the neighbors, and the policies. And then if anything's left over, we'll take some too. And then find someone with the capacity to pay rent on time. Hey, what's up, all of my real estate peeps? This is Brian Lucier with another episode of the Why Not Real Estate Podcast Golden Nugget, where we will take a tip, tactic, or technique and unpack it for you, our viewing audience. Some golden nugget that you can use in your tool belt as a Massachusetts or other state landlord. This one's going to be pretty broad-ended, that you can use in your tool belt to become a better and more successful landlord or property operator. Well, here we are. This episode is going to be back to basics, and we just had Labor Day, so we are now in the fall rental market, and it's shifted literally overnight. The rental market is changing. Some of the news is telling us that job reports are weak, which may result in people having a harder time paying their rent. That's something we're going to have to look out for. Interest rates are still high, so that's creating a barrier to entry for home ownership where people may not be able to purchase their own home. We do hear some saber rattling that possibly September there may be a rate drop, but that is going to put more people on the market, which means there'll be more demand and prices will go higher. So even if interest rates do go down, if prices go higher, there's still going to be a barrier to entry for home ownership, which is going to mean some people have to keep renting. And it seems every rental application we've been getting for the past 6 to 8 months has come with a caveat of rental assistance applications as well. Now, we cannot deny based on a RAFT application or some other rental assistance, but it puts us as property managers in a tougher spot because now we have to have that conversation with a landlord, and we just had one. The couple applied, they qualified, they made enough money, and then after we did everything and were ready to send them the rental application, we approved them, then they said, oh, by the way, here's our RAFT application, and we have to take it. So that means now we have to go back to the owner and have a difficult conversation saying, yeah, we screened this person and now they have a RAFT application. And the question is, well, what are you screening them for? And how come they got through? And how come you didn't screen? And how come you didn't find all this? And this is like one of those Easter eggs in leasing that happen that we as property managers or you as a property owner have no control over. You have to abide by the law. So what's a landlord supposed to do? Well, in war, in sports, business operations, or tactical maneuvers, when the field shifts, you have to be prepared to pivot, but always stick to the plan. And you do have a plan, right? Coach Belichick, New England Patriots, would say this all the time. You know, if there's an injury or somebody's out or this happens or that happens, and the normal rules of the game, or not rules of the game, but situation on the playing field changes, it's not the time to introduce some Hail Mary play or something out of the norm that you're not used to doing. That's the time to hanker down, stick to the basics, and do what you do best. And that's what this one's going to be about. So here we are. What are the primary goals and objectives when you want to rent and find a new tenant? Well, number one, you want to find a quality tenant who can afford to pay the rent. That should be like one of your number one things. Number two is to find someone who respects the property, the neighbors, and the policies. If you have a no pet or no smoking policy, that needs to be clearly defined. And then you want to find someone who'll be able to pay rent on time. So those are your three primary goals and objectives. Find someone who can afford the rent, someone who's going to respect the property, the neighbors, and the policies. And then if anything's left over, we'll take some too. And then find someone with the capacity to pay rent on time. So how do you find a quality tenant who can afford to pay the rent? Like everything, like I said, you have to have a plan. You have to have basic standard procedure. So have a set standard for the income to rent ratio, whatever that is, but then be consistent on it. When times were good, we were at 3.75. Now it's becoming a little bit more difficult. We're shifting back to a 3.0. That means the paycheck that that applicant gets should cover the rent 3 times. So if it's $1,000 rent, their paycheck for the month should be $3,000. That's at a 3.0. If we're at a 4.0, then they'd, in $1,000 rent, they'd need to make $4,000. So you can shift this within the market parameters, seasonal or whatever time of the year is, but don't overlook this. Dropping the standard altogether is a recipe for disaster when times get tough and can open you up to exposure and risk to even bigger issues. Discrimination, placing the wrong tenant, not verifying income. If you lower your guard, then you're opening the door to more risk. And have, number two, is written outline of your criteria. Are you checking pay stubs or sources of income? I have to say sources of income because some people get rental assistance, some people have vouchers. So you can't just go on a pay stub because by law you have to look at all sources of income. Do you have a minimum set standard for credit scores? 600, 650, that's, in this rental market, that's pretty good. Ideally, we'd like to see 700. That would be like a Hail Mary golden tenant, but you got to have a standard and have it in writing. Do you have systems in place with checklists for what you verify for income? And always, always keep good records. This includes emails, texts, notes from phone calls, everything. It's been on a couple of the other shows. It's a good idea to have a CRM app, that's a customer relationship manager, to keep all of this information organized. There's no excuse not to do this because a lot of these are free and online. And even if you're a Lone Ranger, single property operator, you can still get one of these for free. And it will protect you more than it will harm you and help you, because later, if you have 2 or 3 candidates, you can review them and possibly put a couple metrics on there and come up with a valid way for choosing the best candidate. Because if you've got 3 good tenants and only pick one, those other 2 are not going to be happy. So you need to have something to point to. If you don't have this, it will only come back to haunt you if you miss these steps. And then number 3, what are your policies for a W-2 employee versus a self-employed applicant? If somebody's a general contractor or they work on commissions or tips, do you have a way to verify that income? Tips can be difficult because this is cash income, not typically being recorded as part of their pay. They might be getting $150, $200 a day if they're working on a weekend, and that could be thousands of dollars a month that you're not going to be able to verify as income. So you need to find a way to do that. Commissions, those can be seasonal and those can fluctuate as well. Less people buy newer cars in the middle of winter, unless theirs breaks down. And that's right in the middle of heating season when rental expenses are going to be higher or could actually spike. So how can you mitigate those risks? You need to have a plan. You need to have something in writing. And you need to record and document all this. That's the only way you're going to be able to protect yourself. So moving on to the second criteria, finding someone who respects the property, the neighbors, and the policies. How can you verify this? You can't ask someone, hey, are you going to obey the rules? Everyone's going to say, yes, I'm going to obey the rules. This can be a tough one. Here, you need to do some detective work. A good idea is to get onto their social media. LinkedIn would be a good one because that means professional. Facebook, you want to look out for things. I mean, we had an applicant that looked really good until we went on to their Facebook page and we saw the guy waving a Barbie, smoking a joint. And I could never figure that one out, but obviously we didn't rent to them because it was a no smoking building. So I have nothing against waving a Barbie around, but if it's no smoking property, that goes against the policies. So get their address of where they currently live. And if possible, I mean, if they're moving out of state, that's a barrier. It's going to be hard. But if you can drive to that location, park the car, drive by, and take a look around, walk around the building. And what does it look like? Is there deferred maintenance from the owner or the landlord? Okay, that's not the tenant's fault. But is there something more? Do you see cars up on jacks, automotive repairs being done in the driveway? Trash piling up and not being dressed, mattresses on the property, too many objects in the yard, play sets, playground, trampolines, swimming pools. These are all tenant things that you can look for. Does the place have curb appeal with flowers, or does it need a bulldozer to level it down to make it presentable? How they treat the property where they currently live is how they're going to treat your property once they move in. So it'd be worth it to take a drive by. And if you've got 3 or 4 applicants, make an afternoon out of it. Drive all the properties. Now, finding out about the neighbors is a little bit easier. When you're at the place where they currently live, knock on doors, right? Maybe have some coupons for free pizzas. If they answer the door, say, here's a coupon for $5 off at Domino's or something like that. But ask questions. You know, do you like your neighbors? Do you like this building? Do you like living here? And use your senses too, all of your senses. Do you hear dogs barking? Is there screaming and yelling? Is there excessive noise or loud music? Or even worse, are there funky herbal smells in the hallways in common areas that you do not want to be part of your building? Use common sense. Visit the surrounding properties too. The neighbors next door have nothing to lose by telling you what's going on in the building that you're checking out. If the tenant is being a pain in the butt, parking issues, abrasive, they'll more than gladly open up to you to have a chance to vent on the antics of these tenants. Who knows? You may find a really good reason not to rent to the person who applied, or even better, by talking to the neighbor who wants to get out of that situation. You may find someone who would love to move into the property that you're renting to get away from all of this banana stuff with the neighbor. Finally, the policies. This one's going to be a little bit harder to figure out. You're going to have to read between the lines here. We used to be able to get a lot of information on the Massachusetts Housing Court website. I believe it's masscourts.org. But now recent policy changes have restricted access to sealed records. So if there's been an eviction or whatever, some case, the defendant can request sealed records, and it's starting to ramp up. We haven't run into it yet, but I know it's a thing and it's out there. So I would still check masscourts.org, or if in your state, whatever eviction records that are public records that you can get your hands on. But this could become a new hurdle to navigate in filling vacancies. Another thing you can do, checking employers, current and past landlords. You're going to get more information from a past landlord. This is an also must do in your operations. Again, here, having a written checklist for what you ask of every applicant is critical to ensure the quality of screening tenants. And when you talk to that landlord, now here's where you have to be careful. The current landlord, if the applicant's a pain in the butt, they may, it wouldn't be ethical, but they may say, oh, they're great. I'm so sorry to lose them. They want to move. I understand. And you'll be happy with them. But if you get the past landlord on the phone, they're going to remember if these people were a pain in the butt and they have no dog in this fight anymore because they've already moved out. They're more apt to tell you, oh my goodness, they were a disaster, loud music, smoking, fighting with the neighbors, all these terrible things. They'll tell you that. So if possible, you really need to go to the past landlord. So now, how can you find out if someone pays rent on time? Well, that also can be a hurdle. There are a few ways you can check on this. You can ask the applicant for the rent receipts for their past 12 months. They may or may not have these, but a lot of our residents will ask, especially if they come into the office for a rent receipt, and we're happy to give them that. But be careful the answer that you get when you ask this question, because the answer could speak volumes louder than the words you're hearing. So, oh no, yeah, we always pay cash, but I don't get rent receipts. That's a red flag, right? Paying cash and not getting a receipt, something's up there. Now, most tenants, if they're diligent and they pay their rent on time, they want those receipts, and they're going to be happy to show them to you to say, yeah, I pay my rent on time and here are my receipts, you should rent to me. We had a situation years ago, I'm not going to name names, but a property manager was collecting rents and not giving it to the landlord. They were telling the landlord, we didn't collect rents. So after a year and a half of the landlord not collecting rents and the property manager not doing anything about it, i.e. 14-day notices or bringing to court or evictions, we got hired to straighten out the property. And I'm happy to say we straightened out the property. Rents are coming in. The landlord is happy. The tenants are happy. We were able to fix a lot of stuff. But we had to go to each one of the tenants in that building and say, look, the records from the previous property managers say you haven't paid rent in a year and a half. And the tenants were shocked. They said, oh no, we've been paying rent and here are the receipts. So by doing all that, we were able to assist the landlord to actually bring that previous property manager to court. They don't like us very much, but this was over $30,000 of uncollected rents. So, and you can share that story, right? Maybe it didn't happen to you, but you could say, hey, we know a landlord, this has happened. Would you be able to verify the rent receipts? Now, if the tenant can't do it, the landlord probably can. So the current landlord say, hey, I want to rent to them. Can I get a copy of their ledger for the last year? I want to see that they paid rent on time. Ask the past landlord, can I get a copy of their ledger? And they'll probably be able to help you or at least answer a few questions about it. Some will, some won't, but you lose nothing at all to ask for something which is absolutely free. And again, having a written set list of questions that you ask for past and current landlords is critical, because you always want to do things the same way to avoid anti-discrimination or he said, she said. Document everything, get everything in writing, have a system to record all of this. And then finally, the last step we do, someone has gotten through all the barriers, we like them, everything sounds good, that's when we're going to pull the credit. And in this way, we'll see if they have a history of late payments with some of their other bills. Do they have outstanding debt? How are they going to pay off that debt and keep current with the rent? That's a valid question. You need to see an answer on this. So here in a credit report, first you can see their credit. So if you have criteria for that, you can see if they meet the number. And then here you're going to see a history of their payments. Are there delinquencies? Are there collections? Do you see months on end where payments have not been met? That could be a red flag and say, hey, we'd love to rent to you, but we see these 2 or 3 other accounts where there's been several delinquencies month to month, back to back. So based on that, we're not going to be able to rent to you at this time. When you fix your credit, come apply. If we have another unit, we'll take it from there and see if we can help. I mean, that's valid. And you don't want to be the one left holding the bag if you didn't check that, Okay. All right. So while there is no silver bullet, yes or no, to confirm whether or not you should rent to someone, there needs to be a documented process that you have, your back to basics, where you can sum up all of the good, the bad, and the ugly to make an educated decision to help you mitigate your risk placing a tenant in your units. Now we're in the fall market, it's getting tougher. We've seen over the past month, 2 months, actually during the summer, we haven't seen this in a long time. Rentals are staying on the market longer. Either people aren't moving or rents have hit an apex where tenants just can't pay anymore and they can't afford to move. We've been in a couple rental market cycles and I seriously see rents are flattening. We track all that. And it won't be long, possibly even in this winter, that we see rents start to decline. So just be prepared and have a strategy. The outcome for screening a tenant is not guaranteed. You can do the best you can. Nothing is guaranteed. You can only do the best, stick to your plan, document everything. And if there's something, the market changes, rents go down, whatever, interest rates change, some world event happens. If there's something happens to make you reevaluate your plan, then learn from it, adapt from it, and be prepared to pivot. Then, once you've figured all that out, add another checkbox, refine your list, and update the process. But whatever you're going to do, it's back to basics and stick to your plan. You got to have a plan, you got to document everything and stick to the basics. This is all about going back to basics. Well, I hope you found this helpful. I know even myself, I have to listen to my own medicine every now and then, and this was a good refresher course to me. I'll share it with my team, that all of them are on the same page as well, moving forward into a more difficult climate for the rental season. Again, hope this was helpful for all of you, my real estate peeps, rock stars, professionals, real estate entrepreneurs. This is Brian Lucier with the Why Not Real Estate Podcast, Golden Nuggets, signing off, and we'll see you on the next one.